Edward, thank you for being here with me today.
Hi, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm excited to learn from you. So, to start us off, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you write about.
Well, my name is Edward. I was born and raised in the Netherlands, actually. And I moved to the US when I was 16 years old. And then, well, I have a long life story, but I moved back actually to the Netherlands for a few years and then moved back again to the US. Kind of went up and down for a little bit. But then, I only really kind of picked up writing when I was about 16, 17 years old. And here I am basically writing full time. Um, Started as a hobby, but it's become both a full time and a hobby. Uh,
That's awesome. Yeah. So, what type of writing do you do? What industries do you work in?
I write actually for a sports website, and I write for my favorite soccer team, actually. And and that's kind of how I started as well as like sports writing. So that's really kind of my niche. But then also for my job, I do more like marketing, kind of more entrepreneurship and business related writing. That's yeah to pay the bills. That's what I do. But then more as a passion project, writing for sports. And then, of course, I've written and thankfully also published two books as well.
Awesome. And are those sports related, your books?
One of them is sports related. It's specifically about soccer. It's called "You Say Soccer, I Say Football," because I grew up in Europe, so yeah, called it football, and then came here, and then I was like, oh, all right, everybody calls it soccer. But yeah, so one of my books is about soccer, and then the other one is about something very different, actually, about community development. So yeah, kind of seemingly unrelated, but really in a way kind of related as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, thinking about your writing process, especially for that first book that you wrote, did you have any sort of struggles you encountered, maybe mindset or strategy related, that were some hurdles you had to overcome in that process?
Yeah, and it's funny enough, they were sort of unrelated to writing. It was really just about personal kind of confidence. I think the biggest thing was like, will anybody really care about this? That I would say was, yeah, really the primary thing. And really that kept me from starting writing just on a personal level. It kept me from starting writing for quite a while, actually, because first I just wrote for myself, just, all my content was just for my eyes only. But then it took really a while to say, okay, am I gonna like release this to the world? And I thought, no, nobody cares. But eventually, I finally, jumped over that hurdle and finally released it to the world. And thankfully, I mean, I haven't looked back since. But that was definitely the biggest thing, just convincing myself that enough people care to for me to publish this to the world.
Mhm. And how did you work through that? Was it more of a, looking at the data and saying, okay, this is how many people are interested in this topic, or was it more personal self-support type of things that you did?
I'd say it was more personal self-support kind of thing because so my first book was indeed about community development, and so I worked for a nonprofit for 3 years, and I've just been in that space more, more like social development, socioeconomic development, and in kind of social justice kind of areas in my career. So I think it was more of a this is just important material for the world and just for okay, not thinking of myself too greatly there, but
Oh,
this
yeah.
is, yeah, this is like important for, yeah, for people in so large part of my first book, Community Heroes, was just about, uh, people in poverty and just like the working poor. And, obviously that's a huge issue now. And I just thought, okay, well, this is just important for the world, for people to know and for people to talk about this. And then once I, released that first book, then at that point I was like, oh yeah, I'll write anything. Now I can just, now I'm, past that first hurdle. Now I can just, I have the confidence to do it now.
Mhm. Absolutely. So you've moved through that. You've decided you're like, okay, I'm going to write this book. How did you take all of the knowledge and expertise that you had to share and turn that into something that was not only easy to write, but also easy for people to read?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually, because I like that question a lot because it has indeed those two parts of it. For first of all, for me being easy to write, but then also for people being easy to read. So, I like to in my personal life and my career as well. I like to use something called first principles. So it's from physics, basically. It's physics framework of thinking, which is basically it's distilling every problem to its most fundamental level, like just the most molecular level. And with writing, I thought, okay, what's the most like fundamental principle of writing? It's me, the writer, communicating a message to, you, the reader. So that means I want you to understand what I'm writing. So that just means writing my message in just the simplest way possible. Just, cut out the fluff, like just get to the point, just get a message. Like, what do I want to say? That was really the part for me. Like, what do I want to say to the reader? What do I want the reader to remember? Like truly, truly emotionally to remember. And then just write that. Don't like add a little bit of extra packaging, like, add a bit of extra fluff, but like just cut straight to it. So that's really the part for the reader, like just the most fundamental level, just getting to that message. For me as a writer, I think it was just seeing my book actually kind of paradoxically not as a book, but just as a collection of essays. So I forget, someone gave me that advice. I forget who it was. I should probably remember. But
Okay.
so someone once gave me that advice. It's like, don't see a book as like a book, because then it's so daunting. It's like, oh my God, I have to write an entire book. But see it as a collection of essays. And once you see it as a collection of essays, you see it as like, okay, I just have to finish this essay, which is a chapter, and then finish that essay, and then finish that essay, and then just chunk it all up into, essays. And that made it psychologically just more like, okay, I'm gonna take, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days to finish this one essay, which was a chapter, and then another one, and another, and then so on and so forth.
I love that advice. It makes it so much more approachable, instead of saying, okay,
Yeah.
sit down and write 50, 70,000 words. No,
Yeah.
you're going to write one bit at a time. So I love
Yeah.
that advice. Most of the people that are going to be watching this video are going to be first-time nonfiction authors. They're just starting to write their manuscript, and maybe they're struggling with mindset or strategy pieces for how to get that done. What advice would you give them, maybe that we haven't covered already, to help them get to that final draft stage?
Yeah, I'll definitely say, like I said, just with the essays mentality of just seeing it as like, little chunks little chunks of the book that you're writing at each time. But then I would also say definitely in like the very, very, very first part of your writing, don't edit yourself too much, which, sounds like people always think like, no, no, it has to be perfect. I mean, sure, eventually, but not at the very beginning. At the very beginning, it's just ideas. It's just, I call it a brain dump. You just put everything from your mind, just everything out there. And then once you have everything out there, then you start to kind of filter a little bit, say, okay, this looks good, got some momentum there. This one, I don't really know. And then also kind of as a side tip, sort of unrelated, but what I like to do, like with my brain dump, I just put everything out there, and then I have, a few ideas that have a lot of momentum behind them, put those into chapters. And the other ideas, I'm like, I write like 3 paragraphs. I'm like, I don't know, this ran out of gas. Don't just throw that idea away, but like I just turn them into blog posts for my website. So, and then they're just shorter, like, I don't know, 500 words, and just, nice blog posts, good ideas. And you can also sort of use that as a way to, build some buzz around your book, and like, say like, hey, this was an excerpt that didn't make it to the book. What do you think? And then that's a way for you to engage with your audience. So don't just throw those ideas away. Every idea is valuable. I think, every idea is valuable in some way, but just don't edit, don't judge yourself too much in that first period. Just take it step by step by step.
Yeah, that content repurposing, that's such a great idea. Edward, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jesse.